The story begins with the blue-haired girl receiving a blow to her cheek. "Lady Westy, please!" After which she fell with her whole body onto the carpet and closed her eyes, screaming in pain and trying to get up. The dark-haired girl furiously tore the maid's hat from her head and swung the scissors. "Lady!" Pale blue strands of hair fell one after another onto the floor and were scattered all over the carpet. "Stop." Then the brown-haired woman lowered the scissors and said with an evil smile, "It suits you even better." The girl with snow-white hair lowered her gaze, feeling guilty. "Forgive me, lady, please. The floor is a complete mess. Clean it all up now. I don't want to see a trace of your hair in my room." The maid hurriedly tried to get up, taking hold of her headdress, which lay in the strands of her hair. But the brown-haired girl looked at her angrily, crossing her arms over her chest and making sure that the fair-haired one would quickly get away. The maid was leaving, and she added, "I like warm water in the sink. If you forget again, I will cut off all your hair." The poor girl guiltily walked out into the dim and empty corridor, listening to her lady's threats, and began to think, "I'm glad something worse didn't happen." The blonde girl thought that she was lucky, and not everything was so bad. Westy is Mr. Paul's only daughter. Being the daughter of an innkeeper, she achieves everything no matter what. After thinking, the girl lay down in bed and closed her eyes. Needs some sleep. Tomorrow will be a difficult day. A colorful dawn had already appeared over a large city, but there was still no one on the streets and alleys. Some roosters were crowing at the top of their lungs, which meant that a new working day had begun, and it was time to get up. I lived in this tavern most of my life. The blonde girl was starting to get ready, an orphan without a penny in his pocket. Then she carefully tied the apron on her back with a bow and brushed herself off. She collected cold water in a wooden bucket, looked after the household, cleaned, cooked, and did all the work. And Mr. Paul, Westy's father, was kind enough to take me in. The maid constantly looked after the Westy. She brought her food and fed her, obediently leaving after that. But the fact is that he does not pay for my work. The girl was terribly exhausted from constant work. And sometimes it's so hard for me that I just want to run away. She met people. "Welcome. Will there be two of you?" But I know that running away won't give me a better life. The tavern is crowded due to the festival. It's good that the food here is delicious, so I need to do my best, so as not to show your bad side. The blonde one ran around. I have to start preparing food for the guests. Suddenly, the girl noticed Lady Westy, who screamed at her, "Your hair is sticking out, you little fool." She pointed her finger at it, biting into the apple. "You are touching your cap with dirty hands," she answered. "Sorry. I bet you have no idea how dirty your face is right now." The maid withdrew her hand. "You're making me lose my appetite. Go and wash yourself immediately." The blonde one rushed off. "Certainly." She tried to wipe the dirt off her face with a rag, looking in the mirror. "Doesn't rub off." Vesti watched with a grin. "You should hide your hair." "I've heard people go around and ask about girls with silver hair." "Is anyone looking for girls like this?" Vesti answered. "Why should I lie to you? Do you know Eddie from the forge?" "He told me," the maid thought. She's only 13, but Vesti already knows more than I do. The life of girls in the slums is the same. If they are lucky enough, they can get jobs as maids. If not, you will have to live as sluts. This is what they told me after my mother died. I have no luck in life at all, but I must stay at the inn. A pleasant and warm evening descended on the city. Lights were on in almost all the windows, and the street was empty. Meat counters. The maid approached one of them, noticing the woman, and called out, "Hello, Josephine." "Hello, Rin." She spoke. "I'll have pork legs as usual." "Again? Where does Paul spend his hard-earned money? Still hitting?" Rin answered. "Not as often as before, so it hits. I can't stand him, knowing how he treats you." Josephine held out the package. "I put in more than usual, sneak a snack when Paul is away." "Thank you." The girl was already getting ready to leave the counter, and thanked her again. "See you?" the saleswoman answered. "Take care of yourself." The saleswoman began to remember the old days, plunging into melancholy. She is an exact copy of her mother. Josephine then continued to reminisce. The smile never left her face while her mother was alive. But since her mother died, I haven't seen her smile anymore. Poor child. She watched her. A fair-haired girl walked with a basket between the counters, looking for something. Just then, someone called out to her, "Rin!" After she turned around and found no one, she felt someone tapping on her shoulder. Rin shouted, "Minos!" A radiant boy stood in front of her and waved his hand. "Hello! Running errands!" She answered. "Yes, we are out of food." The boy answered, "I rarely see you since you were at the inn." Minos suddenly handed her several sticks of meat. "Here, hold it!" The girl looked at him in surprise. "I can't. I need to get back before the floor comes looking for me." He answered, "This will take a minute. Eat a piece." "My poor hands. They're about to fall off. I wish someone would take these kebabs off my hands." Rin finally gave in and extended her hands to the boy. "Thank you, Minos." He carefully handed her the kebab. The red-haired boy began to laugh, looking at the girl. "Take more? I have plenty," Rin answered. "Okay, thank you. Sometimes I feel unhappy about my life. I'll treat you next time." The boy quickly refused. "I will work as a valet for the nobles," Rin said. "Won't we see each other?" "I won't be able to come often. I'll study. And every time as if to console. I hope you will spend time with me. Pinky promise me." She looked at the boy with sadness and tenderness. "Life always gives me something to look forward to," Snow-haired answered Minos. "Yes, I promise you." And she shook his little finger with hers. "Don't worry about me, Mommy. By the way, it would be better to lie low for a few days." She answered. "Are you talking about those men who are looking for girls?" The boy asked carefully. "How do you know?" Rin answered him. Visti told. And what came over her? "Better safe than sorry." She answered the boy. "Thanks, I'll be careful. Take care of yourself, you too." The girl ran to the tavern, entered, and slammed the door loudly. She said breathlessly, "I'm back." A menacing and angry man, who stood right in front of the girl, grabbed her cap with a sharp movement. He tore off Rin's headdress and threw it to the floor. "Where have you been hanging around for so long?" The girl could not answer. She stood defenseless in front of the man, only covering her face with her snow-white hands. Her hair was disheveled. "I'm sorry I'm late. I heard it." "Take a look. Is this the one you were looking for?" Silver-haired, blue-eyed fool. Two men in strict black suits surrounded the girl and began to examine her. "God! She has silver hair." Paul panicked. "Now, where is the promised reward?" Suddenly, a bag of money flew into his hands. "Thank you, sir." He stuffed the bag into his pocket and asked Rin, "Why are you standing?" "Go with them." She asked again, "What does it mean?" Lady Westy came up to her from behind and said sarcastically, almost in her ear, pronouncing, "You just don't understand, right?" Westy then continued speaking with a smile. "Now you have a new owner. Someone bought you from us, stupid. Please don't send me away. From now on I will do laundry twice a day. You don't have to feed me," Paul said sharply. "Quiet! It's not in my power." The girl grabbed his pants and begged, "Please, Mr. Paul." With one movement of his hand, the man hit the blonde girl, and she flew to the floor. "Get out, you little bastard!" Vesti laughed. "I told you that silver hair will be destroyed. Don't forget me if you become the mistress of an old aristocrat." The girl immediately leaned on her hands and tried to stand up, while the doors of the tavern where she lived slammed behind her. Two serious men stood in front of Rin, while she had already risen to her feet and was looking at them with worry. The silver-haired woman timidly put her hand on the other, quietly asking one of the men, "Sir, what will happen to me?" They, being completely identical in outfit, looked at each other nervously and remained silent in response to the girl's question. It was a cool evening and partly cloudy outside. They suggested, "Why don't we get into the carriage first?" The tall palace, with a blue roof and gilded window frames, shimmered radiantly. "You've come a long way." The woman rubbed the silver-haired girl's hand until she turned red, saying, "You're a walking skeleton, skin and bones." Rin sat in the hot water bath. The woman continued, "It will be difficult to serve Lady Elizabeth in this form." The blonde woman dressed her up properly and put her in a black and white maid outfit. She examined it. That's it. The girl appeared in a modest black dress, on which was a fluffy and long apron, and in shoes. The woman who helped the blonde transform looked at her from different angles. "You look better." In front of the girl, there was a table with an abundance of various dishes. "Now eat," You will need strength. Rin walked up to the table with sparkling eyes and put her hand to her chest. Looks very tasty. The girl carefully held out her hands to the abundance of food. The woman looked at her tenderly. Don't rush, or you'll choke, she added with a laugh. War is war, but lunch is on schedule. Rin began to greedily eat everything she came across. Your job is to serve Lady Elizabeth, she asked. What will I have to do? Things a lady shouldn't do. I'm Julie. Come by any time you want a snack. I'll give you something to eat. The girl answered. Thank you, Rin thought. I'm not sure I'll do everything right, but perhaps life in the duchy won't be so bad after all. The afternoon sun's rays had already enveloped the high arches of the palace, and birds flew in flocks above them, complementing the view. They said that I would serve Lady Elizabeth, but a week has passed, and I have yet to meet her. The girl continued to think. Contrary to my expectations, life on the estate is much calmer than in the inn. Several days passed. The man said, I have brought the girl you asked for, Lady Elizabeth. Come on, introduce yourself. It's an honor to meet you, madam. My name is Rin, the lady said. Take off your cap. The girl obeyed. After the girl's silver hair came out, the mistress looked at it. Rin thought, wow! Before the blonde's eyes stood a delightful girl with black hair, in a velvet red dress. Mrs. Elizabeth's eyes widened, and the earrings on her ears fluttered with movement. Rin watched silently. You really have silver hair, the girl answered. Yes, madam, Elizabeth said. You are so pretty. Suddenly, the lady came and took the silver-haired girl by both hands and asked her, Did you say your name is Rin? Mrs. Elizabeth lifted the girl's hands with inspiration and said, You should always be by my side. Understood? After which she smiled friendly at the newcomer and walked away. See you in class, Rin answered. Yes, madam. Mrs. Elizabeth left the room in which the girl was, followed by a servant. You are incredible, Marvin. Thank you. The girl carefully pulled out the handkerchief. You were right. She has the same silver hair as Her Highness Regina, after which she grinned. Things are getting more interesting. I thought my job was to keep the ladies company. Lady Elizabeth, did you finish the assignment I gave you last week? The brown-haired woman answered. Certainly. The teacher frowned. You made the same mistake as before. I have no choice. I must punish you. Punish? Rin looked slightly frightened, looking hesitantly between Lady Elizabeth and her mentor. At that time, the girl incomprehensibly turned her gaze to her own palms, by which they unexpectedly grabbed her. Rin didn't have time to say anything when suddenly the image of an already familiar woman appeared above her, sharply swinging at her, and at that same moment, fear and confusion took over the maid's body. She was afraid, because now this blow would reach her hands. Rin pressed her palms together and examined the wound, which now hurt unpleasantly. It burns. The girl thought out loud, standing near one of the trees. She said she would check the assignment next week. The girl sat down, leaning her back against a tree, and sighed tiredly. A light wind ruffled the hem of the dress. Rin was lost in thought. So my job is to receive punishment instead of my mistress. The governess is not allowed to punish a noble lady, so they need someone to take the punishment in her place. Lady Elizabeth rejoiced and clapped her hands when I was beaten. She liked to look at it every time. Rin lowered her head. This job is not what I expected, but it's still better than working in a tavern. I get the punishment in her place. I hope it makes Lady Elizabeth happy. Rin summed it up. Suddenly, the leaves of the trees shook along with the grass. Who are you? It was heard in front of Rena from an unknown guest. The girl, rubbing her eye, raised her head and saw a dark-haired guy in a black tuxedo right in front of her. Because the sun was shining directly into her eyes, Rin could not clearly see the face of the guy who bothered her. The stranger leaned forward slightly towards Rin to press the blue handkerchief to her cheek. There's blood on your face. The stranger held the handkerchief to the girl's face. This is my secret place. I didn't expect anyone to doze here. Rin sat in admiration and thought that this is where she met this handsome boy. The god of beauty would be jealous if he saw him. Yes, that's how I first met young Mr. Martin. The heir to the duchy of Ereuput wiped drops of blood from the silver-haired girl's face as she sat on the grass.
Understand what this feeling of sensation was? It's like butterflies in my stomach.
The girl asked out loud what was wrong with her. It felt like she had fallen asleep, and the young man still stood in front of her. Rin quickly ran into the palace in the opposite direction from the guy. "Madam, I'm here. With your permission." The girl landed on the shiny floor in confusion and crossed her arms over her chest. "There's something wrong with my heart." The girl ran as fast as she could. She hadn't had time to catch her breath yet. "Have you been looking for me, Lady Elizabeth?" Elizabeth was unhappy. "Do you know how long I've been calling you?" And Rin tried to apologize. "I'm sorry." But before the maid had time to fully recover, she felt a deafening blow on her own cheek, after which Rin fell to the ground, supporting herself with her hands. Elizabeth looked at her. "Why are you in the clouds, girl?" "Sorry, madam." The maid bowed her head, avoiding Lady Elizabeth's gaze. "I've been serving the lady for about a month now. She has severe mood swings, and she is more temperamental than a Westie. Sometimes she is in a bad mood all day, and on days like these, I can only pray for forgiveness." Rin raised her head. "Sorry, madam, I won't do this again." Lady Elizabeth just sighed in annoyance, crossing her arms over her chest and continuing to watch Rin. "What a fool." The brown-haired woman asked. "What is Luther's homework?" The butler answered. "Studying the foundation of the Throne Empire flag." "Why do I need to know about some flag?" The lady turned to Rin. "Bring me books," Rin asked. "Which ones, madam?" "What's wrong with you? History books. Should I knock some sense into your little head?" The maid was scared. "I'm already on my way." Lady Elizabeth was kind enough to teach me to read and write. Initially, I was very grateful, but now it became clear to me that there was actually a reason why she wanted me to be literate. The more and harder I studied, the more homework she again forced me to do for her. "These sessions are much better than receiving punishments from due to the lady's mistakes and assignment." Thanks to everything, I was able to visit the library. Rin was delighted. "There are many books here. I love the smell of old books." "Where are the history books?" "Almost every book published in the Empire appears in the Duke of Ereuput's library. If I ever have a day off, I'd like to come here and just read all day long." "Are these books enough?" As a maid, Rin wasn't sure exactly how many books her mistress needed. She was thoughtful for several minutes before making her final decision. It would be better to take another one. "Take what?" An unfamiliar voice suddenly came from behind the girl, causing her to flinch and lose her balance. Slipping from the hard surface, Rin was sure that she would certainly fall and be seriously injured. But this did not happen. Someone's hands touched the maid's waist, preventing her from finally colliding with the floor. This someone turned out to be the young master, and Rin could not immediately comprehend everything that had just happened to her. A small smile graced the young master's face as he looked at Rin. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you." But embarrassed by the awkwardness of the situation, the girl raised her hands. The voice was excited. "It's okay, young master." The blonde girl's heart was pounding loudly in her chest. "Feels like it's about to burst out," Martin said. "Looking for the Throne Empire flag base?" Rin nodded affirmatively. The lady asked to bring books. Martin continued. "Finding the right books is also part of the task." Rin hurried. "Pretend you didn't see me." The young master held books in his hands, examining them carefully. "These three are not enough. Luther is hard to please." The maid's posture became uncertain. She hugged herself with one hand, as if trying to cover herself. "That's just the way she is." "Then what should I do?" Rin didn't notice at first how close the young master was standing to her. Martin turned to Rin. "Do you want me to help?" Rin asked. "Can you help?" The young man answered. "Certainly, I've studied this before." The maid was too embarrassed by this attitude. She tried to refuse. "Thank you, young master, though." Martin gently touched Rin's head, trying not to scare her with his actions, and pulled off the cap. Pale blue hair cascaded over the girl's shoulders. Martin said, "Take off your cap. You have beautiful hair." The young man continued to speak, running his hand through Rin's hair. "Haven't you been told this before? They resemble the Milky Way." No one had ever said this to me before. A commoner with hair color like the ruling family. People pointed fingers. Martin put his hands on his waist and turned his head, sighing. "Of course, you don't have to walk like that if you feel uncomfortable." Rin involuntarily squeezed her cap from overwhelming feelings. feeling ready to change. I will do it, young master. The blonde's entire appearance expressed the power and responsibility of her spoken words. I will do as you wish. And the young gentleman seemed to become completely hypnotized by this kind of true aspiration that presented itself to him. She's cuter than I thought. Martin let out a cheerful laugh. Good girl, why hide such beautiful hair under a cap? After which, the young man gave the books to Rin. Take them for reference. And the girl woke up, catching herself in time. Thank you. Martin smiled. I'll look forward to meeting you and admiring your hair. Rin ran away in embarrassment. Yes, young master. Martin's hand, previously raised in a farewell gesture, slowly lowered as he looked after the fleeing girl. Is she the new girl brought by Elizabeth? She has scars all over her body, on her face too. This is too much, even for Elizabeth. However, the smile never left the young gentleman's face as he thought about the fair-haired lady and enjoyed the scenery. His thoughts were only occupied with the upcoming meeting with Rin, when he could meet her again. I hope I see her. But at the same time, the situation with Elizabeth turned out to be unfavorable. Luther looked angry, her face frowning. Lady Elizabeth, on the contrary, turned out to be calm in the unfolding situation and was not at all worried about it. Rin fussily rushed between the governess and the mistress, nervously glancing first in one direction, then in the other. The governess's loud voice rang out with increasing tension. I'll ask again, lady, and I hope you tell the truth. The governess almost immediately continued her speech without stopping. You weren't the one doing your homework, were you? It's on a different level than what I expect from you. I see very well that you received help from someone, Luther said. I'll close my eyes to this. The lady answered. I did it. This is better than the tasks you did before. The sound of Elizabeth's glass breaking rang throughout the room, ringing in her ears. What did you say? Elizabeth was angry. I am the daughter of Duke Ereuput, and educated to write a great essay. Do you dare go to your father? After such a vivid outburst of anger, Lady Elizabeth tried to calm her feelings and emotions that controlled her. The governess, who had been looking at the lady a few seconds before, looked away. I should stop. Luther's gaze was directed at the worried Rin. If I continue this, then this little girl won't survive. So the governess nodded. Understood. I believe you, madam. However, this did not suit the already angry Elizabeth. Lady Elizabeth turned toward her maid, beginning to walk purposefully. Rin cringed slightly. Madam? The blow, which came quite suddenly, was clearly aimed at Rin. Elizabeth turned to Luther. Perhaps it's my fault. A wide, feigned smile flashed across Lady Elizabeth's face. I deserve to be punished. Don't you agree, Governess Luther? Complete silence enveloped the room, diluted only by the unbearably loud slaps and blows of Lady Elizabeth. The other maids were dumbfounded by this picture. They covered their mouths, unable to make even a single sound. That's enough, madam. The governess's words had an effect. Elizabeth's hand instantly froze over the body of the crippled Rin, but the lady was indifferent to the girl's trembling body. Enough. You said the essay was too good for my level. Elizabeth then roughly grabbed Rin's hair, pulling her towards her. I disappointed you and deserved punishment. The lady bowed elegantly. Hope you won't be disappointed next time. I'll be more careful. Luther said goodbye. The lesson is over, madam. Elizabeth did the same. Until the next lesson. And by the way, Elizabeth turned to Rin, enunciating each word with extreme clarity. Stay out of my sight today. But Rin had no choice but to try to hide from Lady Elizabeth's piercing gaze. Yes, madam. The slamming door became a signal. Luther came closer. Can you stand up? The maid echoed. Are you okay, Rin? However, despite everything that happened, Rin smiled. I'm fine. Thank you for looking out for me. The girl wanted to leave this place as quickly as possible. She bowed slightly. I'll go. Luther answered hesitantly. Certainly. The maids were talking quietly. Why does Lady Elizabeth hate Rin so much? I don't understand why she does this. With each lesson, as well as the conflict between Governess Luther and Lady Elizabeth, the punishments became worse. How hard will she hit next time? I'm scared. Only one place gives consolation. The lake is behind the estate. You need to hurry up and get there as soon as possible. This is the only place where I can drive away the sadness. They say the previous Duchess of Ereuput loved this place. Rin knelt down, tired after running here. It gives me peace too. Nobody comes. Rin touched the surface of the river. Peace was visible in every movement. The girl took more water, starting to carefully wash her face, not wanting to cause even more severe pain. So sad. I just wanted to gain Lady Elizabeth's favor. But apparently this will never happen. The lady's face twisted into a malicious smile. She slapped the poor maid across the face until her cheeks turned red. Elizabeth was angry. She stood with a grimace and said, "This bad girl will ruin everything for me." The maid sat on the floor in confusion, told her that she had silver hair just like someone else's and didn't finish. I must remind Lady Elizabeth of someone she despises. Maybe that's why she treats me this way. The gray-haired girl sat on the shore of the lake and cried. I thought, such thoughts cannot change anything. I will live the rest of my days like this. When I first came to the duchy, I had hope for a better life. The girl sat down under an open tree and hid her face in her knees, and sighed. How I hate all this. Suddenly it's unclear who said it. What exactly do you hate? The girl was confused, and I didn't understand what was happening. Look up, they said from somewhere above. The same stranger sat on the tree and said, Hello? Long time no see. Hello, young master, the maid said, looking him straight in the face. She was very taken aback by surprise. The young master approached her face, and he said, What's wrong with your face? Your cheeks are swollen and red. Someone hit you. No, that's not true. The girl answered him and covered her swollen cheek with her pale palm. The young man continued to look into her eyes. Was this Elizabeth's doing? The guy asked, concerned. Nothing of the kind. The embarrassed girl said firmly. Should I ask her myself? Said the young man. It's not worth it, sir. Rin got confused and grabbed his shirt. If you ask Lady Elizabeth, this will cause problems. The girl began to speak and held the guy by the hem of his shirt. Why don't you speak? What happened? I promised to keep your secret. The young man said alarmedly. Nod if yes, shake if no. The boy insisted. It was Elizabeth. But Rin remained motionless. The young prince turned away from the maid. She leaned against his back. The guy spoke. When she comes to her senses, the girl answered. I'm really fine. If you talk, I'll be in big trouble. Understand? The girl fell into thought. I can't tell the truth, because one way or another she is Mr. Martin's younger sister. Young Master Martin extended his hand with the candy to the maid. Here, I wish you would try this. Thank you, sir, Rin said. But that guy answered. How can you thank me if you don't even know what it is? The girl was confused. The guy put his hand on her head and said he would give her treats every time. The kind gesture from the most beautiful boy I had ever seen made my heart flutter. Violence is the only form of human communication that I have encountered. Pain and fear were part of my life. The young gentleman is the first and only person who treated me well after my mother's death. People were standing in the garden. The gentleman asked, You feel bad, your face is red. The girl responded to this. Everything is fine. You don't have a fever. The young master asked the maid and playfully approached her lips, confusing her. She pushed him away. No, it's okay. Is it true? Glad to hear. The handsome young man answered and looked away. The guy gave the girl a treat. What is this? She asked. This is chocolate, he explained. Try it. It's very tasty. The girl took a tasty morsel into her mouth. Her eyes sparkled with happiness. It was simply a wonderful treat. The guy smiled and said, You see, it's very tasty. But I have never tasted such deliciousness, Rin answered. Glad you liked it, the young master said, and patted Rin on the head. She thought. He strokes me again. I don't know if my heart is pounding so much because of the chocolate or because of the young master's beautiful smile, Rin thought. Martin leaned over and asked, Isn't it time for you to go? You've been here for quite a long time. The girl looked into his face and groaned. I'll go, young master. See you later, the girl said. And the gentleman remained standing and smiled good-naturedly at her. Perhaps I will be beaten again for this. Well, nothing. Because of this, I was able to spend time with the young government official, the girl thought. At that time, the guy remained standing in the garden under a tree. As soon as the girl disappeared, the smile disappeared from Martin's face. The gentleman clenched his fists in frustration and thought, "What a pity that I won't be able to see the beautiful Rin for a long time. Lady Elizabeth should still be in bed." Rin thought and tied a maid's scarf as she entered the palace. The maid opened the door to the room. Fortunately, Mrs. Elizabeth was still sleeping peacefully and snoring in bed. "It's my duty to make sure that my lady wakes up in a good mood. Otherwise, she will throw everything at me." The young lady wheezed in her sleep. "Water, water." The maid brought her a glass of water in bed and said, "Here, my lady." The Duchess took a glass of water and asked in surprise, "Where have you been?" She narrowed her eyes and paused, waiting for an answer. "I thought you would immediately follow me. You know how uncomfortable I was without you," said the dissatisfied lady. The young maid knew that this was a lie, because Miss Elizabeth was served by many other maids. "I saw Miruel follow her before I went into the garden. But I shouldn't make her angry," Rin thought. "Without revealing your thoughts," Rin answered. "Sorry, madam." Elizabeth narrowed her eyes and asked, "Where did you go?" "I was in the kitchen, my lady," the maid said. "For what?" the lady asked. "I asked you to prepare some snacks for you." "Snacks? Am I a pig just like you?" the lady grinned. To which the maid thought, "I should have known better. I know you love to enjoy quenelle, madam." "Okay, bring me some," Mrs. answered. "Hello, Rin. You came to get some snacks for the lady," the dear old lady asked the girl, who was sad. "Yes. Can you give me the quenelle I asked for earlier?" Rin asked. "I expected you to come for them." "Take it." The blonde old woman took out another one and handed it to the girl. "Here, this is for you," the maid answered. "Oh, it wasn't worth it." "Well, today wasn't that bad," the young maid said to the blonde cook with an ironic laugh. "You better get going before the lady gets angry again," the old lady said. "Thank you. See you later," gray-haired Rin answered. The old lady thought about it. Poor Rin. She is such a good and hard-working girl. Why does the lady treat her so badly? "It was better if I went with you," another maid insisted. "No, the lady told me to come alone," Rin answered. The maid thought, was there any reason to send me into the forest alone at such a late hour of the night? 30 minutes ago. The lady said that a guest who likes strawberries will arrive soon. Then she ordered me to go get strawberries. "I want you to go pick up the berries alone." "It's just such a task, isn't it?" Lady Elizabeth asked again. "We are expected to do this work in pairs. I'm sure everything will be fine if I hurry." The girl thought hopefully. "Who knows? Maybe I will run into the young master again, completely unexpectedly. However, I heard from other maids that Mr. Martin will soon go to the academy, which scares me," the maid thought. "Unfortunately, I won't be able to see him often anymore, and I heard rustling noises from behind the bushes. There is someone in the bushes. Could it be that there are wild animals there, as I was warned?" Rin thought. The girl sat down behind a bush and accidentally hiccuped. The rustling intensified. "No, someone save me!" she shouted. The sound of wheels was heard. A carriage was driving along the road. Beautiful, she was carried by dashing horses, their hard hooves clattering on the stones. A mustachioed man got out of the carriage, stole the horses, and asked the servants what happened. "Because the ungulates stopped." "My apologies, sir." A scream was heard from the forest, which scared the horses. One of the coachmen answered the mustachioed man. A handsome blue-eyed guy in a green suit opened the chariot door and asked the driver a question. "Scream, you say?" The voice of a blond young man came from the carriage. "Did we stop because of the screaming?" the coachman answered. He quickly broke off. But the young master was already preoccupied with the situation. "We're close to the duchy. I'm sure there are no dangerous wild animals here." However, it was at this moment that Rin, gripped by fear, could not move, feeling unbearable anxiety. Rin wanted to run away as quickly as possible, but her legs seemed to be rooted to the ground, not allowing her to move. The sounds became more frightening, but imagine Rin's surprise when, instead of the embodiment of her worries and fear, an ordinary deer appeared before her. It seems that the deer did not pay any attention to the frightened girl, only slightly tilting its head to the side. And although everything Rin had imagined was far behind her, she could not calm her rapid breathing. A sudden rustling attracted the deer, forcing him to freeze and turn to the source of the sound while the girl came to her senses. It was only when the deer's footsteps began to gradually move away that Rin was finally able to regain control of her body. The girl was still restless, but she still noticeably relaxed after this meeting. So it turned out to be a deer. Rin reached for the fallen basket of scattered berries. No, a lot of time has passed. It's time for me to wrap up. The head maid was pleasantly surprised when she saw the number of berries collected. You brought a whole basket! After which the maid smiled at Rin. Why don't you rest? The girl waved it off. I have to go see the lady. To which the maid was only surprised. How can her ladyship send you in the middle of the night? Rin didn't have time to answer. Two maids burst into the speaker's room, uttering words vying with each other. Rin, there you are! Our guest has arrived. The lady told everyone to be. Following this, Rin almost immediately hurried after the maids. Has he arrived yet? There was a quick answer. Change your clothes. All the maids present were neatly dressed. They bowed their heads and greeted the arriving guest. And the guest turned out to be that same fair-haired young man. Gracefulness was evident in his movements. Lord Hargreaves has arrived. As it turned out, it was the heir of Earl Hargreaves, Philip. He greeted. Long time no see, dear friend. Martin could only grin happily. And it's true. Lady Elizabeth hastened to hug her guest. Philip! Elizabeth complained. Why so long? I missed you. Philip just smiled warmly. Thanks for the greeting, Elizabeth. Then Elizabeth pulled away from Philip, elegantly taking hold of her dress. Let's go to the living room. One of the maids stood closer to Rin, leaning towards her and speaking in a whisper. You can immediately see why the lady likes him. The maid leaned even closer. He is the complete opposite of Martin, like day and night. Rin agreed. You're right. The young master exudes a gloomy aura due to his dark hair and ash-gray eyes. Lord Philip is bright and refreshing. The conversation was just beginning in the living room, Martin said. The trip must have been long, Philip denied. Don't worry. Elizabeth was upset. Didn't you miss me at all? Philip turned to her. I was looking forward to meeting you too. And at the same moment, Elizabeth brightened, pressing her fingers together. Just hearing this makes me happy. The maids standing nearby, who saw everything that was happening, were amazed. The lady never laughs like that in front of us. Philip turned his head, looking at the maids. By the way, do you have a new maid? The one with silver hair. Is she new? Rin, beginning to understand the question from the air, shuddered. Philip's gaze was directed at her. And it's true. Everyone in the duchy is already accustomed to my hair color. I forgot that it would be unusual for people. Philip put his index finger to his forehead. His whole appearance was thoughtful. I've seen this face before. And Elizabeth's mood began to plummet after these words. She bit her lower lip angrily. Elizabeth's loud exclamation made Rin flinch even more. She pressed her hands to her chest, afraid of what would happen next. Philip! The lady pouted, looking at Philip. Are you more interested in a maid? We haven't seen each other for a long time, Philip reassured. This is wrong. After speaking, Philip raised his hand, stroking Elizabeth's head. Of course you come first, Elizabeth. Elizabeth laughed, but her mood improved noticeably, despite what had happened. You almost brought me to tears. The maids, along with the butlers, quietly exhaled, feeling relief from the retreat of the storm. What a relief, Philip continued. The forest is very beautiful, Elizabeth suggested. Shall we have a picnic? Martin refused. Philip just arrived. However, Philip was not against this idea. I'm fine, I'm happy to go, Elizabeth exclaimed. Wonderful! The lady was in a hurry. Let's ride horses! Martin was interested. How far do you want to go? And in response, corners of the Geist forest, after which Elizabeth began to confidently approach Rin with every step. I asked the servants to inspect the area. The lady paused briefly next to Rin, once again showing her true self. Do you agree, Rin? You will show us the way. Suspecting something was wrong, Martin carefully watched Rin and Elizabeth. Of course, madam. It will be ready at 11. Muriel apologized. Sorry, Rin. I should have gone with you. But Rin shook her head. Everything is fine. Muriel is not happy. This basket is too heavy. Rin tried to find an answer. Maybe she doesn't feel comfortable taking two servants. Muriel sighed. Thank you for your work. Rin smiled. It's me who should thank you. I'll go. They're already waiting for me. Elizabeth's hair fluttered in the wind as she carefully held her hat. What a wonderful day! Elizabeth continued to speak, but the footsteps of Philip and Martin could already be heard. It's good that it's not raining today. Both Martin and Philip carefully dressed up. Their clothes looked neat. Philip asked, "Are you ready, Elizabeth?" Elizabeth admired. "You two look spectacular." Philip nodded. "Thank you, you too." Rin leaned wearily on her suitcase. Philip, noticing the fatigue on Rin's face, approached her. "Let me help." But the girl wanted to refuse. "Everything is fine." As soon as Rin tried to finish her speech, she stumbled, accidentally tripping on a small stone. The blonde girl would have immediately collided with the ground if Philip had not grabbed her in time. Philip immediately asked, "Are you hurt?" Rin just quickly pulled away, shaking her head. "I'm fine, sir. Thanks for your help." "This is not good. I hope I haven't angered the lady too much." Anxiety grew. Lady Elizabeth's expression was unreadable. She froze, and even the slightest emotions stopped flickering in her eyes. Even though the situation was starting to become slightly tense again, the walk continued. Everyone began to approach their destination. The small lake was surrounded by trees and bushes. Philip was the first to interrupt the silence, curiosity driving him. "I would never have thought that there was such a place in the forest." Philip turned to Martin with a proposal. "Shall we stop here?" Martin didn't mind, so he answered, "Let's." Rin, confused and controlling the horse, tugged uncertainly on the reins. "What to do? I've never ridden a horse." Philip once again showed his desire to help Rin. He extended his hand. "Don't just get off, right? Take my hand," Philip continued. "It looks like you have no experience in horse riding. You might get hurt if you dismount yourself." Rin's worried gaze was directed at Elizabeth, who was looking only at them, tightly gripping the reins in her hands. Rin was worried, but she couldn't go down on her own, so she could only agree. "I'm sorry. As expected, the lady is unhappy. What will happen to me when we finally return back to the estate?" The variety of sweets was amazing. There were more than enough of them to have a picnic here. "There is so much food here," Philip suddenly proposed. "Listen, why don't you join us?" And Rin was embarrassed. "Sorry?" The girl felt awkward. "I feel good as is." But Philip insisted. "It's uncomfortable for you to sit there." Elizabeth waved her mug. "Yes, Rin. Why don't you come and pour me some tea?" Rin nodded immediately. "I obey." However, the voice of Martin sounded, who had not said a word during the entire picnic. "You shouldn't bow like that." He took a relaxed sip of his drink, closing his eyes. "Relax, it's just us here." And he clarified, "Isn't that right, Elizabeth?" Elizabeth's expression immediately changed. Things weren't going according to her plan. "You are right, Martin and Philip. Have a seat, Rin." Small fish with a very unusual pinkish color swam slowly and serenely in the lake. The chirping of rare birds on the tree branches added an enchanting atmosphere to the forest, combining with the noisy rustling of leaves. And Rin found an outlet here. "It's so peaceful here. I know this is a fleeting moment, so you should savor it." Philip turned to Martin. "Coming to the academy soon. Have you prepared everything yet?" Martin asked. "What do you need to prepare?" Philip spoke again. "You're going to join a fraternity, aren't you?" Martin answered. "You cannot enter there at will." Elizabeth continued the conversation. "I'll be so lonely," Philip promised. "We will be returning during the holidays." Lady Elizabeth was not satisfied with these words spoken to her. "You should come visit me, Philip," Rin asked timidly. "Madam, may I take a little walk around the area?" Elizabeth turned to her. "Go." The girl was not far from their picnic site. She could hear Elizabeth's muffled laughter and the voices of Philip and Martin. Rin then pressed her palms together, clasping them together in excitement. "So the young master will soon leave for the academy. The Tron Imperial Academy is also a military school. They don't accept girls, so the gentleman goes there alone. My days at the manor used to be so long and tiring, and I had no one to turn to for help. But the presence of the meetings with him seemed like a reward, a ray of light in my miserable life. This was the very motivation I needed, which supported my existence, my desire to live. Wanting to throw away all obsessive thoughts, Rin carefully dipped her feet into the cool water. You should come to your senses." The blonde girl raised her head as wild strawberry bushes came into view. She remembered Elizabeth's words. Philip will arrive very soon. He loves wild strawberries, so I want you to pick some. Can you do it, Rin? As Elizabeth's words continued to replay in Rin's head, she had already collected the required amount. That's enough. Rin was pleased with herself. I hope this pleases the lady. However, Elizabeth's voice was heard in the distance. Where are you, Rin? Rin hurried to answer. I'm here, lady. Elizabeth turned towards the girl's voice, looking very angry. Why you? Elizabeth found herself next to Rin. Are you testing your patience? Rin tried to apologize, but the lady interrupted. Damn it! Annoyed, Elizabeth was about to turn around when she suddenly caught her shoe on a stone, losing her balance. Lady Elizabeth was about to fall. She froze, not knowing how to prevent herself from falling. Beware! However, Rin pushed Elizabeth away at the last moment, ending up in the water instead. The collected berries could no longer be saved. Noticing Elizabeth's strange behavior, the girl stood up a little, calling out to her lady in concern. Madam! Rin approached Elizabeth, inspecting her dress for integrity. It's good that you didn't fall into the water. Elizabeth didn't appreciate Rin's caring behavior. She grabbed her by the hair with a sharp movement, pulling her towards her. It's all because of you. How many more times do I have to punish you to finally set this brain right? Elizabeth would have obviously continued to talk, but someone's call distracted her. What happened, Elizabeth? Martin and Philip looked truly excited as they approached Rin and Elizabeth. We heard loud noises. The main question that worried Martin and Philip hung in the air. Elizabeth had her back to them. What's going on here? Elizabeth let go of Rin's hair, choosing instead to tug at her collar. She said in a sweet voice, Expensive. However, the sweet voice did not match the angry expression on Elizabeth's face when she said this. Are you okay, Rin? Are you okay? Elizabeth was interested, putting on a sweet smile on her once dissatisfied face. Yes, madame. I'm fine, Rin said timidly, looking at her mistress, who had changed due to the appearance of the guys. Elizabeth held out a graceful hand and helped Rin rise from the grass back to her feet. Concerned, Philip, who came up with Martin, asked, Did you fall into the stream? Did you get hurt? Rin answered. Everything is fine. You need to be dried off, Philip continued. Elizabeth watched this scene jealously. Rin assured, There is no need for this. I felt dizzy. Elizabeth began her acting career. Philip said, Is it true? You can lean on me. Can? The lady asked again embarrassedly. Apparently I twisted my ankle when I tripped. Only then did young Master Martin's eyes notice the maid's red and slightly swollen leg. I think it's time for us to go back, Martin suddenly suggested, while everyone was perplexed by this decision, especially his sister. Everything is not going as I planned, all because of this stupid girl. Elizabeth was getting angrier every second. I'll pack my things, Rin said and walked towards the blanket, nervously adjusting the sleeve on her wrist. Let's untie the horses. The guys talked to each other while the young mistress bit the tip of her finger, hiding her irritation. Elizabeth could not stand it, and her teeth ground with anger as soon as the maid appeared in front of her. You! Elizabeth squeezed out, causing Rin to flinch in fear, looking up at her mistress. I wanted to spend more time with Philip, and you ruined everything. Just wait until we get home. She's angrier than before, Rin thought, and the guys were already leading their horses in their direction, discussing what they would do when they returned home. Rin asked politely, Lord Philip, would you please escort Lady Elizabeth? Philip replied. Of course, come with me. Hearing this, Lady Elizabeth's face began to shine again, and the anger disappeared, replaced by a light blush. Good job, Rin. Elizabeth spoke quietly to the maid and patted her on the shoulder as a sign of gratitude. Philip said, Take your time, you don't want to get hurt. Elizabeth responded to his request with a giggle. I'll be careful. Hopefully this is enough to keep you out of trouble, Rin thought as she rubbed her wrists again. Martin suddenly suggested. Get in, Rin asked again, thinking that she had imagined it. Sorry, Martin explained. You won't be able to go back to the mansion in this condition. Will you come with me? Rin instantly turned pink at the suggestion. But I can't do it. The lady urged her on, sitting on a horse behind Philip. Come on already. Are you going to make us wait? Rin's heart was beating loudly, almost jumping out of her chest. I obey, madam. The girl agreed so as not to anger her. Finally, when everyone sat down, the horses moved and headed towards the mansion. Rin sat in front of Martin as the wind gently stroked her face and ruffled her silver hair. Not knowing where to put her hands, Rin pressed them to her chest while her cheeks continued to burn with embarrassment. Turning his head back, the azure eyes dared to look at the young master in the saddle. His jet-black hair was slightly disheveled due to the wind, but not a single muscle on his face was tense. As the horse ran, Rin's back occasionally touched the young master's chest, and Rin felt his breath tickle her ear. Was it from the breath on her body, or from the warmth of his body? Feeling like your heart is about to jump out of your chest, Rin thought, trying to calm herself down. Finally, the day has come to an end. Rin rejoiced, finally taking off her apron after a hard day. I'm so tired. We started working more when the guest arrived. It's easier for us maids. The servants were talking among themselves. That's right. Cooks work tirelessly. Who wants to try the blueberry cinnamon pie I stole earlier? I'm so glad the day is finally over, Rin thought, as she untied the apron behind her back, when suddenly someone grabbed her shoulder, bringing her out of her thoughts. I've been waiting for you, Rin. It turned out to be Muriel. Let's chat with Annie later, the girl suggested. I'm a little tired, but she said that she wanted to share something interesting with us. Please come with me, please. I should refuse, but I can't, Rin thought. Muriel always tries to save me, she answered, only for a short time. At night, when everyone was already asleep, the girls quietly walked to Annie's room, lighting their way with a candle and quietly talking. Approaching the desired room, Rin and Muriel carefully opened the door and looked inside. There, in the center of the room, there was a candle. Annie herself was sitting next to her, and other maids were located around. Here are Muriel and Rin. The hostess of the room drew attention to the guests who came to her. What did you want to tell? One of the maids was interested, while the girls who had just entered sat down on the floor with the others. I already said that Jeff was looking for me recently. Look, in the garden, he picked a beautiful white rose for me. The maid spoke. Are you talking about the gardener's apprentice? These roses were favorites of the previous duchess, Annie answered. It's just a rose. Annie continued. He asked if we could get married next year. One of the girls asked again. Are you serious? And then Annie touched her fingers to her lips as the image of that moment clearly appeared in her memory. He leaned closer, waiting for an answer, and when I nodded, Jeff slowly touched my chin and kissed me. All the girls there exclaimed in amazement, some blushing, some covering their mouths, rejoicing for their friend. Rin blushed along with everyone else, lost in thought. The man and woman touched lips. It was so sensual, I didn't want it to end. How does it feel, Annie? The crowd asked. Touch your lips. Aren't they soft? Now imagine what it would be like to feel the touch of lips on yours. Rin herself touched her index finger to her lips to understand the feeling when a pair of soft lips touched each other. The image of a young man immediately appeared in my head. A gray suit, tailored to order, which makes it fit well, raven-colored hair, and a graceful jawline that betrayed the features of a young aristocrat. In Rin's head, there was only him, Mr. Martin, with soul-piercing eyes, covering herself with paint more and more. The girl could not drive thoughts away from herself, still touching her lips, fantasizing. I want to know what it feels like to be kissed. I'm sure it's sweet and tender. A woman and a man touching lips? I never could have imagined that something like this was even possible. They say that when you kiss, a certain warmth arises in your body. But I can't imagine what those feelings are. Will it be as soft and sweet as the chocolate that young Master Martin treated me to? At that moment, I really hoped that my first kiss would be with young Master Martin. There was a bright sun shining outside, which illuminated the entire huge palace. There was a certain silence on the street. The maid was carrying a bouquet of flowers. They are heavier than they look. I hope this is enough to please the lady. After the picnic, I managed to escape the wrath of my lady. Elizabeth looked at her leg. So what should I do with my leg now? I can't go anywhere since I lied about my injury. Can you make a flower arrangement? Go and bring flowers. Rin walked slowly, carefully holding a bouquet of flowers, and thought, I'm glad the lady wasn't actually hurt. After these thoughts, the blonde girl's shoe slipped, and she instantly lost her balance. You feel that she is starting to fall and worry about the bouquet in her hands, she screamed. A voice was heard. Carefully! Rin felt someone's hand grab her around the waist and catch her, preventing her from falling to the floor. A young black-haired guy held Rin's back, looking straight into her eyes. He asked, "Are you okay?" The silver-haired girl was taken aback and did not quite understand what had happened. Looking at the guy, my cheeks blushed. She sweated a little with excitement and opened her eyes wide. After a few moments of silence, she said, "Thank you." He spoke. "Looks hard. Do you need my help?" The maid answered him, "Of course not. I can handle it myself." The young man was about to leave, but looked back at Rin with the flowers. And he said, "Whatever you say, then good luck to you." After which, the girl, hugging flowers, timidly stood and looked after the young man who was leaving in no hurry. She closed her eyes a little and pressed the flowers closer to her. Rin felt a little sad and thought, "He left." Pursing her pink lips a little, the girl continued to plunge into thoughts. "No, that won't do. I can't stop looking at young Master Martin's lips. I wonder what it would be like to press your lips to his. I realize that my wish will never come true." Ren dreamed about this guy, imagining them together. She was pulled out of her dreams by a falling red flower from her hands. "What am I thinking?" She bent down and picked it up. "My feelings for Mister are growing every day. Previously, I was content with watching, but I want more. A simple maid would not even dare to dream of dating the young master. I need to overcome my attraction." Martin opened the large curtains, and bright light successfully entered the room. "It's time to get up," Philip could only say in a weak voice, frowning slightly from the light hitting his eyes. "I don't think I can." Martin was unhappy. "You yourself wanted to hunt birds." Philip, whose blanket was being taken, exclaimed, "I'm cold." Philip looked at Martin. "How can I go if I can't even get out of bed?" Martin didn't back down. "I canceled all plans. You can be so heartless sometimes, Martin. You didn't even blink an eye when I told you I was sick." Martin moved away from the bed. "You're such a weakling." "Then I'll go there alone." Philip asked again. "What? Will you go alone?" Martin was silent for a while. "I'm going to take a guide with me." Philip was surprised. "And who?" Martin answered. "I won't tell." A soft knock echoed throughout the mistress's room. Martin knocked, warning of his presence. "I'm coming in, Elizabeth." Elizabeth turned her head toward the opening door. "Yes, sure." Martin was interested. "How's your ankle?" Elizabeth answered readily. "Much better already. What brings you here?" The young master's expression became more serious as he spoke. "I want to ask you for a favor." Elizabeth was confused. "Do you want to ask for a favor?" "Me?" Martin continued. "I wanted to take your maid as a guide." Elizabeth asked. "Are you talking about Rin?" Martin nodded in agreement. The lady thought for a moment, before giving her final answer. "Do you really want to take her with you?" After which, Elizabeth glanced at Martin again. "She should be back soon," Martin said. "Then I'll wait." While the maid offered the young master tea, Elizabeth looked at him questioningly. "This is weird." Before this, the brother had not shown interest in any of the servants. Why does he want to borrow my personal maid today? Despite the wait, Martin was able to take Rin as his guide. Now they slowly moved through the forest. The horse moved very quietly, almost inaudibly. Rin wrapped both arms around Martin's waist to steady herself. Martin looked back. "Try to relax." Rin winced when she realized that she had been holding on to him too tightly. Rin quickly responded, "I will do so, young master." Her thoughts were chaotic. How can I relax? When I returned to the ladies' room after running errands, the lady asked me to accompany the young master. Come to think of it, I should be the one leading the young master. But it seems that he himself knows the way. Rin squeezed her hands a little tighter again, trying not to bother the young master. Rin's eyes lit up even more when she looked at Martin. She quietly examined his features. Rin lowered her head lower, pressing herself against Martin's back. She said in a quiet whisper, "Why are you so kind to me? If you keep this up, I might forget my place. And I will continue to wish for you, young master." The face of a puppy appeared in front of their faces. Someone said, "Wow! Looks like Louis followed us here," he exclaimed. The brunette then said, "I told Marvin to keep an eye on him." The blonde knelt down next to the dog. But then the boy stroked the dog and said, smiling, "I think he wanted to join us since he missed the picnic." "Good dog," the brunette said, continuing to stand next to the pet. The girl looked back at them, laughing. "What should I do now, sir?" she asked. "You can watch my hunt or take a walk," the boy said. The girl was about to ask again, but the brunette interrupted her. "Get some rest." And then he loaded the gun. The boy turned around and walked away, only throwing him from behind. "I know Elizabeth doesn't give you a break. Let's go, Louis," the brunette said, calling the affectionate dog to him. The girl froze in place in surprise. She answered, "Thank you, sir, and I thought about it. It's a pity I can't ask why he treats me so well, but I'm in no position to ask." The girl understood, looking at the back of the departing gentleman. Then a snow-white bird appeared before the eyes of a certain person. It sparkled brightly, as if reflecting the rays of the sun. The boy aimed at her, bringing the gun closer to himself. He squatted down, hoping for the perfect result. At that moment, it was as if he saw nothing but snow-white feathers. No bright rays of the sun, no clouds behind them. Then, after a few moments, the boy opened his other eye. The light also illuminated his crystal blue eyes. "I know I have to take my feelings to the grave," the girl thought, looking at the high castle and the area around. Inside that castle sat a lonely lady. Her hair was dark, long and wavy, and her face was stern. The girl lowered her gaze and whispered, "For the life of me, I can't understand what's going on in my brother's head. The elder brother never showed any interest in the household staff, and he showed no interest in me either." She thought, "Why did he ask about this girl?" Then she remembered his words. "Looks like your maid is finding her way around the forest." But someone's voice pulled her out of her thoughts, asking carefully, "Would you like another cup of tea, madam? We have a lot of employees." The brunette thought while she drank another mug of tea. She closed her blue eyes. "But there is a reason why I looked everywhere for a girl like Rin." She saw her reflection in the tea. She personifies the image of the most revered woman of the empire. Regina, the only heir to the throne. She thought, "My father always compared me to Regina." She thought, remembering how he screamed, "Why can't you do anything?" The father screamed, "Looks like you haven't learned anything. All you do is go around and torment the servants. You will never reach the same level as Her Highness," he shouted. "The princess seems perfect, and she will become the first empress of the empire." The girl thought, remembering how she envied her at the balls. "I get upset thinking about it," the girl reasoned, frowning. There was a knock on the door, and she said, "You can come in." It was a maid who had bright green eyes. She awkwardly addressed her mistress, opening the door slightly. "Lord Philip asks if you would like to join him for tea." The maid asked, and the lady asked again. "Great! I almost died of boredom," the blue-eyed lady exclaimed, greatly rejoicing. She jumped out of bed. She then exhaled heavily as she said, "If I had known, I would have prepared in the morning." The maid wanted to object. "What should I answer to the Lord?" she asked, and the lady answered indignantly. "That I agreed. Don't you see what I'm going to do?" "Don't stand there! Go and pass on my message," the brunette exclaimed, and the maid answered in fear, "Yes, madam." But then a wounded bird appeared before the eyes of a certain person. She was already dead and covered in blood.